Okay, welcome back to Nick Lenz's movie review, episode number 146. This is reviewing the very first Sam Raimi Spider movie, Spider-Man, released in 2002. I was 14 years old when this movie came out. And here's something interesting though. A lot of people do know about this. In one of the trailers of this movie, we actually have this thing where we have the Spider-Man webbing in between the Twin Towers. Now, from what I heard, this scene was planned in the movie, but they cut it due to 9/11. As a matter of fact, this movie did have a small delay with it. Now, also interesting little factoid about this movie: the same year this movie was released, 2002, it was also the 40th anniversary of Spider-Man, well, his debut, and his 500th issue of Amazing Spider-Man was released the same year, which was a great year for Spider-Man. Now, 2 years prior to this movie, we had X-Men. An excellent movie, but the biggest problem with the movie, and a lot of people pointed it as one of the biggest criticisms, the lack of costumes. Because Bryan Singer thought they would look silly in live action. You call this silly. It's Spider-Man. You gotta have the costume. Now, interesting thing when it comes to before this movie was released by Sony, back in the 80s, James Cameron got his hands on the rights to this movie, and his version of Spider-Man was weird. Like it was some kind of mutant, and he also apparently had a scene where, get this, he was planning to have a sex scene between Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson. That didn't happen here. Nope. Now, who is the cast of this movie? Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker as Spider-Man, Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson, James Franco as Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn is played by Willem Dafoe. I don't remember who played Aunt May. Let's see, who else in this movie? Oh yes, there's a cameo by an actual It's actually two big cameos in this movie. One, of course, is done by Bruce Campbell. You're probably thinking, what the heck is Bruce Campbell doing here? Well, him and Sam Raimi are old friends since the Evil Dead movie, so he would occasionally make cameos in Sam Raimi's work. Also, there's an Evil Dead reference in here. You're probably thinking, what's the Evil Dead reference? Ben Parker's car. Yes. The car he drives is the same car that Ash Williams had in the original Evil Dead movie. Yep. Now, does the movie take place in the same universe as Evil Dead? No. It's a separate universe. It's just that it's just an Easter egg for, well, the movie itself. Now, the movie starts off. Now, the thing itself with this movie is that it starts off pretty much with Peter Parker chasing the bus, because the bus missed his stop on purpose. And apparently it's a recurring thing. And then, of course, Mary Jane Watson, who's a high school student, people are thinking, wait, that doesn't sound right. Mary Jane Watson wasn't a high school student. She was a class Peter Parker. Well, I think that took inspiration from the Ultimate version of the character, which she was. Though a lot of the inspiration for these movies come from the 60s version of the character. Even though that the whole thing of Mary Jane Watson being a classmate of Peter's, that was taken from Brian Michael Bendis' stuff. Not Stan Lee. Stan Lee had nothing to do with it. Lee himself does make a Cam movie in probably one of the best scenes of the whole movie. And he gets in the bus. Of course, Peter Parker's wearing glasses. You're probably thinking, Peter Parker wearing glasses? That's kind of weird. Why didn't the guy who succeeded him do that? Well, because I'm away with it. Now, interesting thing when it comes to Peter Parker and his glasses. He did originally wear glasses, like prior to becoming Spider-Man. And apparently he kept wearing even after he became Spider-Man until Flash Thompson broke them. Yep, he destroyed them, and he never wore glasses ever again. So, we have this wonderful scene where, like, it's from the comics, which I do appreciate this. Now, we later on have the class going to focus on a Flash Thompson movie, and he's depicted like the normal bully he is. Unlike the version that appeared in the current Spider-Man movies, where he is Arab and he's much more of a dick than this guy is. Yeah, Flash Thompson is a jock. Yeah, the version of Flash Thompson is more of the traditional comic book version, the one that the current movies use. That is simply that the director came up with. Also, he's rich. So, he bullies Peter, though Mary Jane sticks up, so I think Peter's got a crush on her. I think even Mary Jane kind of knows that. So, they go to the village, and of course, he's taking pictures for the class paper, and the tour guide basically asks, he's like, yeah, that's fine, no problem. Take pictures, and then we have the classic moment of the spider coming down on his hand, where he's taking a picture and bite right in his hand, completely from the comics. Yes, that is from the comics. Though the scene itself is taken from the first story arc of Ultimate Spider-Man, where Mary Jane was actually at the scientific she was actually at the scientific exhibit in the original classic origin story. She was not there at all. Though it was more hijinks involving that story where the spider ended up on her before it's finally crushed by Kong. Yep. And then eventually, like, Peter gets home from school, he gets sick, he goes straight to bed, skips dinner, wakes up next day, he apparently decided his glasses are no longer needed, and apparently he grew a six-pack overnight. Yes, a frickin' six-pack. I wouldn't be surprised if Tobey Maguire basically had this damn thing. So, he goes out, he tries to catch the bus, and then he basically puts down, oh, sticky. And then eventually he starts climbing up the walls, which is what he does in the comics. He actually have a close-up of his fingers here. Yeah, people don't discuss this. Yes, because many things in the movie, the one thing the movie people do not discuss is a close-up on his fingerprints. Yes, we actually have the little tiny spider things popping out his fingertips. That's how he sticks to walls. Which, okay, even though that's kind of a gross thing to see here, but it's a really cool effect. I gotta praise Sam Raimi's special effects team for it. What I cannot praise him for is something that everybody hates about this movie. The organic web shooters. Oh, good God, the organic web shooters. Okay, let's talk about these damn things. Okay, now originally they were going to have the mechanical web shooters, but they decided, okay, let's go with the organic ones, probably to save on money, because probably just didn't freaking care. And funny little factoid, 3 years after this movie was released, Peter got organic web shooters in the comics. Yep, he did. And this lasted for 2 years before one more day got rid of that and had those powers switch over to Kate Parker, which made a lot more sense to freaking Peter having them. Yep, so he does the whole thing like, go web. He's like, go. He does the thing like, does the whole thing with hand. And then eventually he does this. He's like, And then he turns things sideways like this. And then he does this. Normally, the reason why he does this, because the way the web shooters work in the comics is that there's like a device on the palm of his hand he presses with his two middle fingers. That's the reason why he does that. And whenever he does a fist, it doesn't work that way. But if he does with the two middle fingers, that's how it works. Though it hasn't pointed out that the reason why both in the comics where Spider-Man and Doctor Strange did the same hand sign is because they're the same artist and they put it in that universe. So, he'll say like, go web, go, and then of course he decides to web shoot without a mask on. And then he decides to put on his makeshift costume. Yep. And goes to get money. $300 to take out a wrestler in 3 minutes. Yep. And he goes to the wrestling ring. Now, this movie gets this part right, unlike the Mark Webb version, which gets this part wrong. So he goes with this guy's, and the announcer, who was played by Bruce Campbell, announced him as the Amazing Spider-Man. Even though he told him his ring name was the Human Spider. He's like, go, okay. Oh yeah, and the wrestler he's fighting against, now he's called Bonecrusher. This is probably just another name for Crusher Hogan, who was his original opponent in the comics. Oh, and guess who plays Bonecrusher? The late Macho Man Randy Savage. Anybody can tell it just by looking at him. I initially didn't know at that point, but later on, yeah, this is Macho Man Randy Savage playing this character. I'm like, Macho Man Randy Savage in a superhero movie. I'm sure that's something people don't talk about. He's like, he even does his signature catchphrase, "Ooh, yeah." He's like, "Ooh yeah, baby." Yeah, that's actually one of his catchphrases he's known for doing. And I do appreciate the fact that he actually kept up with the movie. What I did like, though, is that he didn't use the elbow drop. Yeah, that was his signature move. Was his, like, off the top rope, like, elbow drop that he was known for doing. Though, the way his appearance looked, and from some footage I've seen of him, apparently this is inspired from his look he had, not from his classic 80s look with the tassels on the sleeves or the pants. This is actually taken from his late WCW run, where he's so humongously jacked and he no longer wears his cowboy hat. So this is taken from like late 90s WCW. That's where this look is taken from. Because this is the look he had at that point, so I guess why not? Though the thing is, not long after this movie, he showed up in TNA briefly before he passed away. And then he was inducted to the Hall of Fame like 10 years ago. Which, a lot of people tend to ask, like, why the heck did WWE take so long to induct him in the Hall of Fame for? Because of how much beloved he was. Apparently, from what I heard, the reason why he would get inducted to the Hall of Fame, because one of the board members was a big fan of his. And he's wondering, like, okay, Randy Savage is a big name. Why isn't he Hall of Fame? Fans was like, okay, I'll put him in the Hall of Fame, whatever. So after he defeats him, he gets screwed out of the money, and of course we have this classic pulled directly from Maze Man's 15, or one of the most anyways. In the comic books, in the original story, he actually was already wearing his trademark costume. In the movie, he's still wearing his makeshift costume, where he stops the guy who became the burglar. Yes, that's what he referred to as the burglar, even though they call him Spike or Dennis. Yes, and after he leaves, he finds his Uncle Ben murdered. Now, here is something that I myself have pointed out over the years that I did not like about this movie. I mean, aside from the organic web shooters, that was a dumb thing. But this was stupid. Okay, they changed the way of how Ben Parker died. He was shot, yes. But where he was shot was completely... I mean, it was worse in the Amazing Spider-Man movie that came out in 2012. I mean, in this movie, he was killed via carjacking. Really? A carjacking. Like, apparently... Now, I don't know if this is going to be a case for the current movies of how they explain Ben Parker in that one. But here's the thing. In the comic books, even in the Amazing Spider-Man anime series from the 90s, they got this portion of Ben Parker's there, right? You see, Ben Parker died in a home invasion, not a carjacking. Why the heck they decided to do it like this, I have no idea. Now, Peter does a battle with him. He tracks down the Acme warehouse, which he does go down in the comics too, beats the crap out of him, and realize, oh crap, you're the guy basically able to get away. And here's the thing. In the comic books, this guy actually survived this encounter with Spider-Man, only to later die in Amazing 200 via heart attack. In the movie, he dies falling a window. Peter did not push him. Oh no. He tripped on a pipe and fell through a window and died. And kind of in a way, Peter unintentionally avenges his uncle's death. And basically adapting the costume he's now wearing in the comics. In the case of Norman Osborn. Okay, now here's something interesting though. His name is Meldon Straw. I'm thinking, who the heck is this guy? In the comic books, this guy is known as the Robot Master. And this guy has got no connection to Norman Osborn comics, but he is from the comics, so... Good job including him, except that he had nothing with robots. He was simply Norman Osborn's assistant, and he basically decided to use the drug to turn him into what became the Green Goblin. Now, this is pulled, like, the way they have the Goblin form in the movie, it's very much inspired by the classic comic version and a little bit from the Ultimate version in a way, but that wasn't explained until later. But mostly I think it's taken from the classic version. And then you see him in the actual damn suit. Oh boy, the suit. Yes. A lot of people have poked fun at the suit over the years due to the fact it looks like a rejected Power Rangers villain. I appreciate though they kept him on the freaking glider. Like first he says sort of silhouette where he kills General who really want to shut down Oscorp, like Osborne Industries, and then eventually it's like apparently the board of directors want to out him, and then you have the infamous Battle of Times Square, which is by far the best action sequence of the whole movie, and one thing the trailer was building up toward. And this is the cameo that has Stan Lee in it. His name traveled from basically Green Goblin's attack. And then he basically, like, he plays like, oh, I surrender. And he beats up a bunch of cops. Spider-Man comes in, beats the crap out of him. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to ask, does he use pumpkin bombs movie? Yes, he does. And, okay, the way they work in the movie is a little different than the comics. In the comic books, they basically are explosives. In the movie, apparently, they're vaporizers, which apparently uses to kill the entire board of directors with one pumpkin bomb. And now, here's the thing. In the comic books, he carried this around with him in a purse. Yes, which Peter poked fun of in 2013. Like, oh, you missing your man purse. And then Gob was like, it's you! In the movie, he doesn't have the purse. Nope. Oh yeah, and also his glider, which I appreciate though, the people who made this glider is accurate to how it looks in the comics. Which kudos for that. So, and he basically fires it off, destroys some like balloons, whatever. Peter battles him, he does get away. Peter actually saves a lot of lives. And Peter is shockingly not arrested for battling the Green Goblin. People are actually very appreciative of this. So, also, Mary Jane wears a Mandarin dress here. Now, if you play this Spider-Man video game, you actually can play her in this dress. Yep. And one of the times, basically, Peter in the movie, when Spider-Man saves Mary Jane from muggers, she does this. Makes out with the rain by pulling out his mask and have upside down kiss. I have heard that apparently Tobey Maguire found this to be so uncomfortable. He did not like this at all. He hated this. I'm sure that Kirsten Dunst had a problem with it, but Tobey Maguire, yeah, he didn't like it at all. The fact that he had to do this upside down. This upside down kiss. And then, of course, we have Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. Now, people love J.K. Simmons as Jameson, which, yeah, I agree. He's one of the best things about the movie. And Simmons was made for this character. Like, he's, like, spot on, like, the way he's drawn the comics. Good job. He basically gets everything right about the character. Yes, everything right. And at one point, you have the Green Goblin attacking the Daily Bugle. Now, you're probably thinking, prior to this, did Green Goblin ever attack Jameson? I don't think he ever did. Not like this, no. There's this funny bit where Spider-Man webs up Jameson's mouth. He has done this in the comics multiple times, where he's webbed up Jameson's mouth. So I thought that was quite funny through that end. And then later on, so she says, okay, be quiet, let the adults do the talking. And then you have Green Goblin do, sleep. He just does this. I'm like, what? He only does this once. I'm like, really? So he keeps his wrist sleeping gas? And then he monologues like a 60s comic book, like a 60s villain. Like, something like a freaking slime. Like, yes, I know that his dialogue has been poked fun of, which, yeah, poke fun of dialogue. Willem Dafoe just having a blast playing this character. And then he turns him down, and then he basically, like, battles him later on. Like, at the Brooklyn Bridge, we kidnaps Mary Jane, and takes a cable car, which has kids in it. And luckily enough, the Green Goblin gets attacked, like, what Peter trying to say, Mary Jane and these group of kids. We actually have a group of local citizens just throwing rocks at the Green Goblin. Which, by the way, if you're ever curious though, did any people ever throw any kind of objects at any of this Spider-Man in the comics prior to this? No, they never did at all. I thought that was kind of hilarious. Oh, he says, we mess with Spider-Man, we mess with all of New York. And then he proceeds to, like, throw battle at them. Yeah, it, like, throw his rockets at them. It was, like, hilarious. At Mary Jane say, apparently he kind of drags in some abandoned district. They fight for a while, and then Green Goblin takes out his mask. It reveals that he's actually Norman. He says, be my son. He's like, I already have a father. And of course, it's Ben Parker. And then he does the Green Goblin voice, and he presses a button, which activates a blades on his Goblin glider. And then he jumps, and the Goblin glider impales him. Now, here's the thing. This did happen in the comics. Oh, yeah, this happened back in issue 122. The issues after Green Goblin killed Gwen Stacy. And then his last words were, take care of Harry. And then Peter took Norman Osborn's body without the Green Goblin suit and dropped him off at the Osborn penthouse and just drove off. Yep. Now, the way that basically no one's reacted to Peter prior to this, it's pretty accurate to how he picked in the comics, where he's very friendly with Peter, not antagonistic toward him, and later on, when he kind of figures out that Green Goblin figures that Peter Parker and Spider-Man at dinner, and they had this thing where he got slashed by one of the Green Goblin's, like, mini glider things, and people are like, oh, Peter! And then he says, like, what happened? Like, what happened? Bike messenger. What's up, bike messenger? Like, apparently that's how Norman figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He doesn't say anything to anybody, and then he just ups and leaves, and Harry's like, what are you leaving for? I introduced you to my girlfriend, who was Mary Jane. And then after, well, Norman's death and Harry and Ben's death, then Peter basically makes out Mary Jane at, I think it's going to be Norman's grave, confirming that they do have feelings for each other. But Peter passed on the idea of having a relationship with her into the next movie. But for the start of this trilogy, it is really good. Nothing really bad about this, I mean, aside from the like, web shooters and the obvious look, per se, of the Green Goblin. Well, my only main criticism of the movie that I didn't like was where Ben Parker died. Yeah, I think that change was completely unnecessary. I mean, what was wrong with basically having him die in a home invasion? I mean, heck, they've used as an Ultimate Spider-Man. Yes, they use that in Ultimate Spider-Man as a hallucination of how Ben Parker died. Which, believe it or not, 10 years after this movie, the actor who played Ben Parker passed away. I don't know if the actress who played May Parker is still alive, and I have no idea. Yep. But next movie, we actually have some interesting stuff setting up, basically, with the third movie of the series. But next movie review discussing Spider-Man 2, released in 2004. I'm using fun factories about me related to that movie in episode 147. Yep, so that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned for next review, which will be Yoshima Half-Demon Princess. Yep, and that'll be it for today because for anime reviews, because no Fire Force today. Nope, no Fire Force. I checked. The new episode's not uploaded yet, so for dub. So I'm gonna wait till whenever that comes out. So at least Yoshima Half-Demon Princess came out this week. Cool. Okay, to the video. Bye.